Hello, these are all my hands, and they are surrounded by a particular selection of gear. As today, we're talking about the music devices I take with me when traveling and why. When it comes to choosing gear for a trip, I tend to look for units that have a small footprint, are ideally battery powered for maximum portability, work well standalone, and could potentially be used to produce a full track if I have the downtime. But I'll throw in some honorable mentions for simpler gear fidgets too as we go along. Long story short, I just got back from a few art-filled weeks in Mexico City, which was excellent, thanks for asking. And one of the decisions I had to make while packing for that trip was what gear, if any, I would bring with me for the plane, etc. Of course, the rational answer is probably to bring nothing, as I should try to sleep on the plane and then spend the trip soaking in the sights and immersing myself in the local vibe. But I'm a gear nerd who will always overpack, then feel pressured to use what I brought with me or else feel bad for having brought it at all. It's a nice self-destructive cycle. I also find there's something creatively different about making music when traveling, even if the result is stuff that will never be polished into a finished track. For me, it becomes less about outright productivity and more about immersion or blending in, which may seem counterproductive, I know. How do you immerse while in headphones and focused on gear, I hear you ask? Fair question. Sitting in a park or cafe, sketching or doing sound design while surrounded by local residents also working on whatever it is they do makes me feel less like a tourist, more connected, like bringing my own rituals to another city's ritualistic places or some such pretentious nonsense. Can you tell I majored in philosophy? For this list, I'm going to tackle things based on the type of trip and how much room I would have in my luggage. First up, let's talk flying with minimal space in overstuffed bags. Quick aside here to explain that I can't be bothered fighting for space in the overhead bins on overbooked flights, so I try to keep my carry-on or personal item to whatever can fit beneath the seat in front of me. For example, on this particular trip, I had to bring 2 weeks worth of clothes to suit a varied climate as well as other amenities, so space was tight. I also like to sketch, so my carry-on needs room for some art supplies. That meant going as small as possible while still packing enough punch to keep me entertained for a few flights and some downtime. In those cases, the Woovebox reigns supreme. Small enough to fit in my personal item under the seat and easy to carry around to a park or coffee shop, the Woovebox is also feature-rich enough that I can work out creative ideas or follow happy sonic accidents and not get bored on a 5-hour flight. In the past, this slot would have been filled by the Teenage Engineering OPZ, as that used to be my go-to when traveling light. But build quality issues eventually pushed me to replace it with the Woovebox last year, and I'm happy to have made the switch. Though I do have fond memories of the UI and creative immediacy of that now discontinued little TV remote. Here's a short snippet of something I started on the Woovebox while in Mexico City. Next, how about a long road trip? In scenarios where luggage space or cramped underseat storage is less of a concern, I would definitely take my Synthstrom Audible Deluge. Battery's a little low right now, just ignore that. A versatile jack of all trades, the Deluge is the brain of my live rig, a perfect solo couch or coffee shop companion, and I know it like the back of my hand, except grid mode. Shh. That said, while I've traveled with it before, when you factor in the protective case, I find the Deluge is just bulky enough to rule it out of tightly packed air travel, but your mileage may vary. It's also much more costly to replace than others on this list, so I begrudge cramming it under the seat to inevitably be stepped on as I jostle for legroom. These days, I reserve it for car trips where I have a bit more room. In fact, my first real chance to dive into the Deluge was on a road trip through Eastern Canada a few years ago, where I recall sitting in Halifax coffee shops working on ideas that later became tracks on the Brick Speedboat EP. How about trips that split the difference? If I've got a bit more room in my luggage, but not quite enough for the Deluge, this is where I reach for the Novation Circuit Rhythm. In terms of size, the Circuit Rhythm is a nice middle ground between the Deluge and Woovebox, While it's not quite as powerful as either of those, it holds its own when it comes to immediacy and fun workflow. I also bought mine at a super steep discount on clearance, so I'm way less cautious with it than something like the Deluge, which would cost much more to replace. However, the caveat with something that relies 100% on samples, like the Circuit Rhythm, is you need to be sure you've prepped some inspiring sample packs beforehand, or else you'll be banging out empty pads. But we're all good at sample management and organization in advance, right? No? Maybe prepping sample packs for travel is a good subject for a future video? Okay, so how about if you're just on a short bus or train ride without time to go deep, but want to avoid doom scrolling on your phone the whole time? This is again where I'd probably look to the Woovebox, as it is also a great music fidget for times when you just want to have fun but aren't concerned with making something worth sharing. Just load some random presets, randomize some patterns to get started, and make noise until you've missed your stop again. Alternatively, the more obvious answer would be something like the Pocket Operator series from Teenage Engineering, which most of us probably have one of kicking around somewhere. I only have the PO20 Arcade, but I've had a few fun sessions with it where it was just loose in my jacket pocket and kept me entertained for a short stint. I don't use it much at all these days, but I did 3D print this case to keep it safe at least. Posthumous shout out to the Korg Volca sample, which I no longer have, but did see me through at least one flight where I recall getting really weird looks as I hot-knobbed all the way to my destination. Finally, I'd also like to give a quick honorable mention to the SOMA Labs Rumble of Ancient Times, which I haven't actually traveled with yet, but could see doing so as it's a happy accident dopamine delivery machine. Some caveats though, as I have had to 3D print a bumper case and a battery cover to help reinforce it a bit, and you can't save anything you do on the device itself. So if you've managed to create the world's best banger between bus stops, it won't be there for you when you power on again. But maybe that's part of the magic of making music while traveling? I'll leave that up to you. So to recap, we've covered scenarios like long flights with cramped luggage, road trips with more space, as well as shorter stints on trains and public transit. Of course, these are just my picks from the gear I happen to own, but I'd love to hear what you bring with you when you travel, or do you just gaze out the window and contemplate the futility of our existence like a well-adjusted adult? Let me know in the comments. In the end, I didn't end up making any full tracks on this latest trip, but I did make some noise and managed to do a few sketches while taking in an amazing city, which is a win in my book. Thanks for watching.